All right, good friends, this is going to be a calm one. This is just going to be a very relaxing, serene episode. I got to make that proclamation out of the gates. I don't know what you're expecting. Maybe something action-packed? Nah, probably not tonight. No. It actually might be the calmest episode I've ever recorded, and it's a weird time to even record because I just dropped 0.5 milligrams of clonazepam. That's a benzodiazepine. Why did you do it, Josh? Why'd you get the prescription? I can hear you judging. Come on, Josh. Just deal with your anxiety with your Wim Hof breathing and your push-ups. Well, I can tell you it's not for anxiety. I mean, I still got the moderate anxiety, but it's not debilitating. I got the prescription because I'm going to get on a flight next week for the first time in 2 years. I got my niece's bat mitzvah in Colorado, so I got to get on a flight. I can't miss it. But to do so, I met with my neurologist, and we went over the new game plan. The new game plan is an hour before the flight, you drop 0.5 clonazepam, and then that night, 0.5 clonazepam, and hopefully we have suppressed my nervous system, my vestibular system. Hopefully the GABA is calm, and nothing is going to make me sway and bob and go nuts, which is what Maladisbarkman syndrome does. It makes you go a little nuts for a few months, so we're trying to do everything we can. But then she said, how about a trial period? So today I did the old trial pill, and I popped it, I don't know, a few hours ago, and now it's kicking in nicely. And I didn't have to record an episode, but I thought, let's see. Is this going to help me structure my thoughts? Are my thoughts going to be all over the place? Am I going to fall asleep into the mic? We'll see. I don't know where it's going, but I'm happy you're with me. I'm happy to be with you for episode 242, which is going to be so rusty. It's been so long. And I got some excuses. I got a duffel bag full of reasons. Why? Why have I not been doing this podcast? Which I do enjoy, and I plan to do for the rest of my life. But I've been such an insomniac. I have no energy. When it's time to actually go to sleep, which is what this is. Right now, it's like, around 10 p.m. I should be going to sleep, but everyone's down in the house, and I go, this is when I'm going to fire up the mic. Typically, it's a nighttime recording. But when I get to that point, for the last couple of months, I've just been up and up and up, and I know insomnia leads to more insomnia because you obsess over it. And if you have insomnia, like the kind where you wake up in the middle of the night and you're just wired for 3 hours, and then you have the thought that tomorrow's going to suck, tomorrow I'm going to be robbed of any energy or ability to focus, and it just snowballs. And then you start going down the rabbit hole of Reddit and Quora, and you start wondering, do I need meds? Do I need to do the old Ambien? What do I need? What do I need? What do I need? It sucks. It's the worst insomnia. But I slept okay. The last 2 nights I was in the living room. I'm out of the bedroom. I'm in the living room with the AC pumping. And I'd say I had a couple B- sleep. So I'm ready to record. But if I could ever fix this thing called insomnia, and I don't want to do the meds. I'm already on the clonazepam. How many can I juggle, folks? I want to solve it so I can make this a weekly again. But right now it's just going to be rusty. And they say you got to, put together 10,000 hours to become an expert on something? Malcolm Gladwell said that. And I was thinking, all right, I want to be an expert. Is that the goal, to be an expert podcaster? You've mastered the craft. It's not going to happen. I did the math. If Malcolm Gladwell, first of all, I find him to be quite boring. I know a lot of people are so into the theories of Malcolm Gladwell. I've tried about a book and a half of his. It doesn't capture me. He's clearly very smart, just not for me, though. But in his book, Outliers, I think most people know him for that. He says 10,000 hours to achieve mastery and the true expertise. 10,000 hours. I was like, okay, I've done 241 episodes. This is 242 right now. That's about 121 hours. That's a little over 5 days. That's 5 days of podcasts I've put together. That's not even close to mastery. But let's just say I'm 42 going on 43, in my heart going on 63, but I'm 42. Let's say I really do this until I'm in my 60s, 70s, and I'm still doing the Here We Go podcast. And you're still listening to this. Whoever you are, you're still with me. I might achieve 10,000 hours of this, but I know for a fact I won't feel like a true expert. That's the point of life. You're not supposed to get to the end of something and go, I've mastered it. If you're really good at it, get a little bit better. I guarantee Steph Curry still wants to get better. Isn't that crazy? Steph Curry, and you saw those moments in the Olympics against France. Did you see the last minute against France? I know it's dated. I have so many things I wanted to talk about. There's going to be so many dated references. Did you see Curry against France? If Curry doesn't heat up, France wins the gold. All right, that's an old topic. But the truth is, I bet Curry wakes up the next morning, and even though he's the greatest shooter of all time, he probably wants to become a better shooter. And that is life in a nutshell. A lot of us are going to get pretty good at things, whether it's your job, whether it's how you parent, whether it's how you work out. We're all going to get pretty good at things if you're intentional about it. But most of us won't perfect a damn thing, because that word perfect, it's too subjective. I don't even know how to quantify it. And the whole Malcolm Gladwell bullshit might just not be true at all. 10,000, where'd you get that number? Why don't you go 15, Malcolm? Why don't you go 20,000? I mean, shit, you just write this book, you got a number. Where'd you get the number, Malcolm? And I did read it, Outliers. It put me to sleep. And I've heard him interviewed, and he puts me to sleep. Be nice. Say something nice. You just rip Malcolm Gladwell. Now say something very nice. I will say something nice. I'm loving my students. What are we, 2 weeks into the new school year? Loving my new students. I saw one of my students who I love at the Y. It's weird. I work out at the Y, and I'm surrounded with a bunch of teens, and I say, gather round. All right? Let the gawking begin. Rosenberg's about to do his curls. And one of my boys, Randy, he's my Middle Eastern correspondent. I told Randy, he's from Lebanon. I had him as a sophomore. He's now a senior. But I ran into him, and I said, Randy, how was your summer? And he said, I was in Lebanon for the last 2 months. You want to see what it's like? And I had a lot of questions, obviously, because I'm consuming everything in newspapers and on my TV. And he said, let me show you what it's like in Lebanon. And he lives more towards the caves. This is how he explained it. There's the caves, and then there's the towns. And we're more close to the caves, his friends and family. And there's still electricity. There's still running water. You know, don't picture just caves. There's more to that, but he calls it the caves. And what he showed me on his iPhone were 3 straight videos of airstrikes right above Randy. Airstrikes, rockets, bullets, blasts, explosions. How was your summer, Randy? Hey, you know something, Mr. Rosenberg? It was interesting. Let me show you. Airstrikes. And I was like, Randy, were you scared? That was my first question. Were you scared? Because these videos are fucking scary, Randy. And he's like, maybe for the first, he smiled. Randy's already so much more mature than me. It's hilarious. He's 18, I'm 42. And he looks at me like, yeah, I mean, for the first 20 minutes, it's a little bit scary, but then you immediately become desensitized to it. And it's just the life you're going to live when you're there. That's the life you live. Well, what about the cortisol? What about the chemicals in your brain that are supposed to just be going off the charts when airstrikes are happening above your head, above your town, above your home? And he was saying, no, that's how we live. You know, and Randy now lives in Terra Linda, quiet, peaceful, little Terra Linda. I'm thinking, Randy, what if we had airstrikes above Tia? We would all freak the fuck out at all times, and you can't make the comparison. There's going to be some perspective moments on this podcast. We do complain about some shit here in California. We have worthy complaints. I don't want to say our complaints are totally unwarranted, but there's no airstrikes above my head. When I wake up in the morning, I can grab that newspaper out of the driveway and walk back to my front door, and that is just a totally mindless, dull exercise. I'm not looking above my head into the sky and thinking it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Everybody in, everybody in. I never have to say that. I never have to say that to my family. Everybody in, everybody in. In Lebanon, Randy, he hears that probably every 3 hours. Everybody in, everybody in. All right, it passed. All right, now everybody out. Let's go have some fun again. Let's get wild in the streets again. And he shows me wild in the streets. He describes wild in the streets. And he also truly is better than the media I would consume. Here's a senior at TL who is my Middle Eastern correspondent. And he's Druze. Druze, a religion I didn't know much about. I mean, I've heard the word, but he was telling me. Druze serve in the IDF, although Randy is not allowed to even visit Israel. Would he want to? Yeah, he has a thirst for knowledge. He wants to see the world. He's not allowed. And I also asked him, is there any true resolution? And he looked at me and said, of course not. No, we're talking about thousands and thousands of years of conflict. This is just the current amalgamation of it. Is he using amalgamation properly? I'll just say the current situation based on thousands of years of conflict. But no, I mean, we could watch all the pundits and talking heads say, here's what has to happen. Netanyahu has to do this. Hamas has got to agree to this. Hezbollah has got to. There's a lot of has got to, just to end this current war, as many people clamor for a ceasefire. But once we're done listening to the analysts on TV, I think we take 3 steps back and we ask Randy, once again, is this going to be resolved? And Randy just goes, no, of course not. And you accept that, you live with that, and it makes you sad. And you're allowed to be sad because a lot of life is sad. You can't resist, you got to accept. We're not wired that way. We always want to problem solve. How do we solve it? But, yeah, I like to always end those rants with, I'll stay optimistic. But is that an empty comment when I just say, and I'll stay optimistic? On to the next thing you wanted to talk about on your podcast, and I'll stay optimistic. It just sounds so empty. Sounds so careless. And I'm hoping we can work that out, what's happening in the Middle East right now. Now a closer look at the Giants pitching staff. And I'll stay optimistic about that as high school football is back. And I actually do want to talk about that. And because I don't have enough time for smooth transitions, I am going to talk about that. Think about this time of year for a moment. Late August becomes September, and September becomes a little cooler, and here comes the wind, and here comes the fall leaves. And you know what? Here come the Friday night lights. Even though where I live, there's only a couple of high schools that have real lights, but here comes the high school football. And I realized something. It's special in these small little clusters across America. Here's what unifies us. I forget if you're on the right or left, but here's what unifies us. And forget if you're a high school football fan or not. Just football in general. Even if you don't love sports, let me explain. There are kids who worked all summer long, and they did get faster, and they did get stronger, and they developed some beliefs that they're going to be good at tackle football, and that it's going to mean something to their group of friends, to their ego, to their legacy. It's just going to mean something to make a few tackles, to have a few runs, a few catches. And in every little town, from my town of Santa Fe going up through Novato into Petaluma, Santa Rosa, in every little town, there's a few names of 17, 18-year-olds to watch for. And I read these capsules. For some reason, I care to still read the high school football capsules. What games to look forward to. And I don't know why, but you keep going. Go to Ukiah, go to Eureka. Go into Vacaville, go into Vallejo. Go to the Sacramento area. Keep going into every single state in this country. And there's all these tiny little towns that look like sleepy towns when you drive by on a road trip. But they care about their football. And the alumni come out. And the firefighters come out. And a lot of the neighbors come out. And it's not just about the football. It's about the cheer. It's about the spirit. It's about the camaraderie. It's about what's going on after the game. It's about the snack bar. It's about the beef. It's about the friction. It's about the rivalries. It's about the bands. And there's a lot that goes in to just 4 quarters of tackle football for teens. And I get swept up in it. And I have nothing to do with it. Except I teach these kids in class. And on Friday, they wear their jerseys. And occasionally I say, what position are you? And they defensive end. Actually, no. At the school I teach at, they always play both sides. I'm a receiver and a safety. I bet at those high schools in Texas, these guys are just like, I am a receiver, and that's what I'm doing until D1. But there's other schools where it's like, we only got about 24 guys. I'll be on the field the whole game until I'm absolutely drained and need an IV by 9 p.m. And I think I get as much enjoyment. I don't know why. I get as much enjoyment just sitting on the bleachers, eating some seeds, watching high school football, even if it's 2 shitty teams watching high school football, than if you gave me Niners-Ravens tickets and I had to drive out there and watch a few fights and just see a bunch of people abusing alcohol. And even though the caliber of athleticism in the NFL is so wonderful, and I love the NFL, it's just so much damn better on TV. But high school football, you got to be there. Speaking of the alcoholism aspect of NFL games, clearly it's just debauchery, buffoonery, tomfoolery, I tell you. But I did read that alcohol education is different nowadays. So even though what I'm watching, probably these people in the stands, fighting, barfing, screaming, just blacking out by the third quarter. NFL games are ugly. They just are, for the most part. I've been tailgating, for 5, 6, 7 hours. There's also some wonderful ritual to it. You know, there's also some great tradition to these group of friends. They meet up on Sundays. For the last 15 years, we're always here with the hibachi. He brings the sausage. He brings the Modelo. We all catch up. Even though we're getting fucked up, it's still a nice tradition. I'm all about that. And I've loved tailgating myself back in the San Diego State days. However, it's probably a bunch of 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, and you go up to your 60s. But I wonder if teens right now into college kids, and I know college kids are still binge drinking. I'm not trying to shape a different narrative on that. But from what I've read, there's some polls. No one likes polls anymore. After the Trump-Biden or Trump-Hillary polls were just so wrong. Anytime you bring up poll numbers, people are like, I don't know about that shit. And it's true. It's true. All these polls are kind of a bunch of bullshit. You're just relying on people to tell you what they did, what they said, what they think. Like if my phone rang right now, it's up to me to tell the truth. How many people even tell the truth in this country? Hey, can we ask you a few questions? This is Gallup. This is the Pew Research. And I answer the phone or what? Someone's emailing me? Or what's the sample size? Out of 360 million Americans, what are they asking? We asked 70 people on the Bible Belt how they felt about Kamala's DNC speech. And that poll is going to lead us to thinking what? It should lead you to thinking nothing. Nothing. But I did see a poll that kids nowadays are drinking less. Okay, kids are drinking less because the education has changed. That is simple. If you were a teenager in the 1930s, 1940s, 1950s, people weren't talking about cirrhosis. People weren't talking about brain disease. People weren't talking about abduction. Abduction, he meant to say addiction. I think the benzos are getting into his brain. Abduction. Well, maybe abduction. You know, you drink enough, you never know what's going to happen. But I feel like nowadays, the education about health risks are there to the point where it's not, yeah, you could have a few glasses of wine. It's not like, yeah, have a few Budweisers on the weekend. Yeah, have a few IPAs on your birthday. It's don't. Really, the WHO, I think the World Health Organization, in the last year or two has just said 0. That's the magic number. 0 is how much alcohol is healthy. Because how many people have Googled, is red wine healthy? How much is healthy? What's moderate drinking? A lot of people are curious, like, what's okay to imbibe? And the answers lately are 0? Like, none. Just, how about don't put the poison in your system? How about that? Don't put the poison in your system, which could wreak havoc on your brain and your body and make you age and actually put you in a situation to make some poor decisions. It'll fuck with your judgment. You'll wake up the next day with regrets. I have to text some people, sorry about that. Guess I got a little deep into the White Claw. Now, that's not me, because I've never had a sip of White Claw. And I pride myself on that. Vote for Rosenberg. He's never had White Claw. Vote for Kamala. She's now got Tim Walz on her side. Vote for Trump. He's now got J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance? You know what's weird? I actually read Hillbilly Elegy before I knew any of the political affiliations that were going to come. Along with reading that book, my wife, she just reads New York Times bestseller. She knows I like memoirs, and she recommended it. And I'm not naive. Like, I understood that the guy was basically saying there's a lot of white people suffering in this country too. All right, I know you want to point to the minorities, but J.D. Vance was saying there's a lot of white people in that Appalachia area that are just suffering and they don't have a chance and they're being destroyed with opiates. But look at me, look what I did. Pulled myself up by my bootstraps and I got myself into Yale. And I was such a bumpkin at Yale, but I was so smart. I learned everything with social capital. I learned from him and I learned from her and I learned from him and I learned from her. And you could be like me too. And it's the classic, you could be like me too. And don't forget about how a lot of my people have suffered and aren't I a hero? And I read the book and I actually thought it was pretty entertaining. I never thought years from now that guy's clearly going to be Trump's running mate. But back to Walz for a moment. Here's a weird thought. I watched Walz's speech at the DNC, Tim Walz. And it was recommended. I watched it on YouTube. I didn't watch it live, but I think my wife heard that, you know, his son is on the spectrum and there were some really intensely emotional moments cheering for his dad, you know, screaming, "That's my dad." And it was sweet. It was special. And then I was thinking, wait, how is this speech being viewed widely? Instead of just asking myself, here's the scary thing about social media. I'm tempted sometimes to see how things were received by the masses. Growing up, that was never a thought. All of my sports opinions were just mine growing up. Until social media, all of my world opinions, just mine. My music opinions, TV opinions, about the arts, about any social issues, just my opinions. Those are just my opinions. And it felt good to be an individual. But watching Tim Walz's speech, instead of immediately gauging, did I like it? Because I think I'll like most speeches at the DNC. I think I'll get into it. I mean, it's a rah-rah wrestling sporting event. You know, it's just a filled arena of people making incredible promises. I'll do this. I'll stop that war. I'll stop that immigration. And I'll let this happen. It will say no to mass shootings. It will do this with abortion. They're just saying every great promise, you know, not like how it's going to happen, but it's a time where you just say, I'm going to solve the crisis. We're going to mend any sort of division between conservatives and liberals, and we're going to dominate. We're going to create jobs. That's the DNC, right? You just say whatever the fuck you want. And people are going to cheer like crazy. A lot of standing ovations. And then I did. I went online. I was like, all right, speech seemed good to me. How was it for a bunch of others? And I got into that Reddit. I'm not talking Twitter or Instagram anymore. And of course, I'm not on TikTok. I have purged myself from social media. I mean, I still get on Facebook. They still have memories of me from 10, 15 years ago. Facebook memories and Facebook Marketplace. I can't quit you, Facebook, even though it's ridiculous. You just see all your friends' parents communicating and writing their own name after every post. Hey, you look wonderful. Love always, Carol. And you're like, you don't have to write that. We clearly see it's you, Carol. Jesus. They're like, dear. You ever see that from the old folks on Facebook? Dear. Dear Ruth, we ran into your grandkids recently. We know you're talking to Ruth. All right. And Ruth put up a post of sunset in her yard for the 9th straight day. And it's a work of God. Thanks, Ruth. And now the 9 guy, it's fun to read, let's be honest. But I went to Reddit. I'm now a Reddit fan. I don't know why. Maybe it's just a bullshit source. But I get to read about Tim Walz on Reddit. And turns out, well, people remain divided and they say mean things. Hey, welcome to the internet. They say mean things about this guy and baseless claims. Or then other people believe he's the next coming of Jesus. He's wonderful. He's shitty. Welcome to politics. Why am I even talking about it? I don't know. Oh, yeah, it's the idea that I don't want social media to shape me. I don't want online opinions to even seep into my brain and shape me, shape my identity. Because then what am I talking about in conversations? Just stuff I heard, stuff I read, and adopting it as my own. I can't have that happen. I don't want that. But I do find myself hitting up Reddit pretty hard lately. And I shouldn't do that with movies. If I enjoyed a movie, just enjoy the movie. Who cares if Rotten Tomatoes told you it's 36%? And who cares if Rotten Tomatoes tells you it's 99%? Just have the experience, right? And you know, French people say differently than us. They do. Here's how we say and my daughter, who's 3, and she's just exploding with language. This kid's amazing, by the way. But that's what everyone says about their kid. And that's what, if you're going to say anything about God, that's God's work, right? When you look at your kid and you're like, fuck, this is fun. This is actually the best thing that we're capable of doing. Yeah, that just seems like a higher power's involved. The way we look at our kids, but this kid's saying a bunch of stuff, and when my daughter's, you know, between comments and trying to get the right word, she doesn't stop. She doesn't just pause. She goes, and I think I a little bit less. You know, I've learned to have some filler words like at the end of the day, and to be honest with you, and let me tell you. No, I'm just kidding. I hate those transitional phrases that people use. You can just tell that their brain is churning, trying to get the right words, and they're going to say, look, I'm just going to level with you right now. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say some shit. What's with these transitional stalling phrases? But the way we say in America, it's U-M-M-M-M-M-M. That's how you spell it in a text. But I'm starting to hear how the French say it, and it's a little different. They go, it's kind of like E-H-H-H-H-H-H. If I'm U-M-M-M-M-M-M-M, so this morning we were at Goodwill, and I found a flower pot, but it was a little expensive even for Goodwill prices. So I told my wife, we should look on Nextdoor and see if anyone has some free ones. But the French, and I know this because I live in a neighborhood where our fences are short and our neighbors are close. And I love it, and I love my neighbors. I love my French neighbors. They're always outside of their house. They have a fixer-upper. That's their house. It's a fixer-upper. They could even hear me doing my podcast right now. Hello, bonjour. And I have a few French students this year who I love. But I hear it. When they say it's just different. How'd that happen? We all need the pause. The pause. But why do we all still use our vocals when we're pausing? We ain't saying shit. Why don't we just shut the fuck up? Allez, on trouve bien et je trouve bien. And it sounds dumb, just like I sound dumb when I'm like, I think we're good on chomps, but how many do you eat per week when you go to school? I eat 2 chomps, and I know it's too much red meat to go along with my carne asada tacos. How much meat is too much red meat? And am I hitting that vegan frozen section at Trader Joe's pretty hard, acting like I'm all healthy when it's got 50 ingredients of words I can't pronounce? I'm like, oh, meatless meatballs, how healthy. It says gluten-free and vegan in big bold letters. And I look on the back and the nutrition facts and all the ingredients. I'm like, what the fuck? Dexotrasimate, astotastamate, Distocostagoose, Lastagastigadis. It's like, what are these words? And I'm telling myself, you're so much healthier. I think this is going to be the next documentary that, hey, vegans, you've all been fooled. All your meatless meat and your cheeseless cheese and your eggless eggs, you fucking killed yourself. You killed yourself. Just because you all watched 2 documentaries. Well, here's the third. Here's the third documentary. Strike 3, you're out. Vegans. Oh, the vegans who've been turned around by a couple of documentaries. Where they're like, I don't believe we're intended to be eating that. And especially, those are bottom feeders. The way they're being inhumanely treated. You know, it's good. It's a good speech. To be a vegan is a great speech to give someone. And vegans will tell you, honey, I wouldn't even touch that. No. Leather, I wouldn't wear it. And it sounds so noble. But look on the back of the meatless meatballs at Trader Joe's. You are killing yourself. And they're tasty. They are. You dip them in that. You know that mustard they sell at Trader Joe's that's so spicy? It's like, is that horseradish? Is that Chardonnay? What is it? Is it yellow Chinese mustard? It's a little much. I saw playground graffiti. We go to Trader Joe's in Santa Fe, and then we go down the street into Loch Lomond, and there's these big pirate ships and slides and swings. It's fun. Actually, it's too sunny. I think I always need to bring a hat, and I always forget a hat. And sometimes we forget sunblock, and this time we just forgot the whole bag, so there was no water, no hats, no sunblock. The worst parents ever. But we got there, and we're like, all right, just 5 minutes at Pirate Park. We call it Pirate Park. And sometimes we even bring little baby corn like Tom Hanks was eating in Big, and we call it pirate corn. We're bringing pirate corn to Pirate Park, and we all entering saying, "Arr, arr." A bunch of dorks, this family. "Arr, here's your pirate corn. We're at Pirate Park without sunblock." And I'm having fun. You know, there's all the other dads who get too close and like, "Hey, how's it going?" You're like, "I'm good, man. How are you doing? It's been hot lately, right? Back to the weather. You Niner fan?" "No, I'm not a Niner fan. I'm pretty into the Cowboys." "Oh, Cowboys? Should we talk about how much we hate each other now?" Hey, sports dorks talking about their teams. And then I looked to my right, and on the side of a slide, there was some graffiti. It said fellatio. Not making that up. Saw playground graffiti in Santa Fe, and right on the side of the slide, like the one where you first walk into, in marker, it had the word fellatio in cursive. And I was like, whoa. Like, that's interesting, because that's clearly how old you have to be. At least 16-year-olds at night coming with their markers and practicing perfect cursive. It wasn't like that graffiti type of writing that you see in the city. This is the suburbs, folks. Fellatio. Okay, so I just have to watch my 3- and 6-year-old running around this park. Running around the word fellatio, it didn't seem right. It seemed a little dirty. It was funny as shit, don't get me wrong, but I'm like, I got some questions. That's not too intense. It's like a Dixie when I was young. Right in front of Mr. Rodkill's first grade classroom, carved into the wall outside, it said potty. You know, we all know potty words are bad words. This just said the word potty. And I was like, shit, that is bold. That is bold. I don't know much about first grade. I went to open house. My daughter's in first grade, and they started talking about homework. And she's going to be doing 20 minutes a night of homework. And I'm thinking, no. It's just a little much. I want her to excel. I want her to be very literate. But I look at her and I'm like, wait, when we're home at night, we should be outside playing golf, softball, bubbles, dances, YouTube, cooking, baking. We're going to sit down with math homework? Oh, on the inside, I was dying. Even though I really value first grade, I value everything about the school my daughter's at. Then I was thinking, did I like first grade? And the answer is no. No. Maybe first grade is that jump where kindergarten's still daycare and fun. And then first grade's like, here's school. Here's school supplies and a desk and homework. And you are going to start to have kids that just hate it already. And that's the sad part. I have some of the sweetest kids. I teach all juniors and seniors. And they nicely tell me we don't like school. And I'm not offended. I get it. And they're so nice. They still attend. But they're just honest. They're like, I don't love the idea of school. I'll do well. I'll probably ace your class, but I don't like it. And it's always a challenge to me. How do I make this fun? How do I make this fun? How do I make this fun? It's tough for teachers to reinvent the wheel because there are standards we have to follow, and we're trying to build literacy. I don't really give homework, though. I think if the kids work bell to bell, super hard, then at least in high school, I personally, with my subject, don't have to give homework. I get it. If other subjects do, I guess I get it. But that's wild to think a kid could come home after being in a desk, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., 3:30 p.m. Maybe you got to play. Maybe you play a sport. I don't know what you do. Maybe kick it with friends. Maybe you go to the park and write fellatio in cursive if you're a vandal. If you're a straight criminal, but you got things to do. And then you got to go back to your backpack and think I had English, history, math, science, Spanish. Holy shit. How many hours these kids having? And I just saw it all sped up in my mind at open house. It just all sped up in my mind. And then I was talking to my wife in the car and I was like, I don't even know, like my memories, honestly, my memories of first grade, we're seeing KN together for the first time. And I didn't know it's a silent K. It said getting to know you on the board. It said getting to know you. And in my head, I'm reading decently for first grade. I'm like, getting to canoe? Canoe? Is that canoe? Getting to canoe? Are we talking about a boat? And I wasn't kidding in my head. I didn't ask. I should have just raised my hand. Why was I so shy to say, what's KNOW? But I read it for months. They didn't teach it. It was just on the board. Getting to know you, getting to canoe, getting to canoe. I struggled with that. I perseverated on the littlest things. Clearly I had ADD, undiagnosed. But guess what? Everything was undiagnosed back then. There was no medicated kid on ADHD. He was just the wild one, bouncing off the walls. And he was good at recess. Fuck, he was good at handball. He was good at football. Think of the kid who had the craziest ADHD that you could think of. If you grew up in the 80s and 90s, that kid was totally undiagnosed. People just called him the wild one, the bull in the china shop. We had a lot of terms that were not ADHD. And then they got out on the field and you're like, damn, they're going to be a success. Damn, they're going to be a success. At least they're going to play some college sports because that motherfucker is wild out there. Tackling people in non-tackle sports, just excelling at cone ball, foursquare, Olympic day, you name it. Killing it. Straight killing it. I told my wife I have no memories of first grade except the silent K, and then we had assemblies that I would call hootenannies. And I don't really know the term hootenanny. I asked my wife to Google it. She didn't Google. She doesn't Google everything I say Google, because then that'd be Googling like 100 things a day. Google that. Yeah, you Google that. No, she didn't Google hootenanny, but I was like, I feel like there was this old person who sat at a piano, like a honky-tonk piano, and we would all sit Indian style on the ground. You don't say Indian style anymore. You say crisscross applesauce. Actually, I don't like that. You just cross your legs, right? What do we need to say? Crisscross applesauce. I'm a grown-ass man. I don't go, all right, I'm going to sit crisscross applesauce. I did sit at open house. I sat on the ground, crisscross applesauce. But in my head, I was like, it's Indian style. What if I was still that guy? I still call it Indian style. Like I wasn't ready to advance with society. To me, it's still Indian style. No. They were never Indians in the first place. Columbus, he was in the Bahamas, folks. He thought Cuba was China. The guy was lost. The first natives he saw, he thought he was close to India. He called them Indians. And we used the term that long where we named a baseball team after it, and we just recently call them the Guardians. Holy fuck. We'll send a label as far as you could send it before someone's like, hey, you know something? Maybe we change that. And then it splits society into a giant war of renaming things. And do we take the statue down? And do we question that person in society? And we castigate them now? And we have to rename our sports teams. But the assemblies, the hootenanny, where we would sit on the ground and we'd all just smile. We'd have our hair parted and our Oshkosh bagosh. And I was telling my wife, and they always used to sing this song. I remember this. In China, we never grow chili. So sing me a verse that was worse than the verse. And my wife thought I was kidding. I was like, what, you've never heard that? And she's like, hell no, I've never heard In China We Never Grow Chili. And she was laughing because she's like, that doesn't even make any fucking sense. In China We Never Grow Chili. What do you mean grow chili? She's like, do you mean chili peppers? And I was like, that's a real song. I'm not making this up. Aye. In China, we never grow chili. In the multi-purpose room at Dixie, we're all sitting on the ground, scream singing, aye. In China, we never grow chili. And I found it on Spotify. Oh shit, I found it. That means I didn't make it up.
Aye. In China, they never grow chili. So sing one more verse that's worse than the first. Make sure that it's foolish and silly. A canner exceedingly canny one morning remarked to his granny, a canner can anything that he can, but a canner can't can he? Aye.
In China we never grow chili. So sing us a verse that was worse than the verse and make sure that it's foolish and silly. No fucking joke. How many of you listening right now have heard that? And what? Prepare for a solid F word right now. What the fuck does that mean? In China, is that a slur? Should I even stop saying it right now? Is that gonna get me canceled? No one grows chili. Chili is just a dish. It's a stew in a pot. That, God, son of a... What if I got that worked up? Can't get worked up. Your GABA's calming. My GABA, G-A-B-A, what does that stand for? I barely know what's happening in my body right now. Actually, this will filter out soon. It's just a trial run, folks. And then I got to pop a pill before the flight and then one after and then taper down a few days later. Hopefully I don't get a bout of MDDS, which will create stress and my life will be a mess. Aye. Rick remembers that. I know he does. Anyone else from Dixie Multipurpose Room? Aye. Or as the French say, yeah. In Paris, we always eat snails, call it escargot. They fucking eat snails. Holy shit. And now we have mini forks. It's a delicacy. Snails. I'll eat it all. I've eaten horse. My wife and I on our honeymoon, I remember that. We were in Venice. It was on the menu, and I was like, hey, when in Venice? It was decent. Ate some horse. Why don't we eat horse in America? Are there rules? There are rules. There's animal rules of what we can eat and what we can't eat. But if I was in China, let's say I was in China and they served me dog, because I think they eat dog in China. Would I? And this is the guy who goes, I love dogs. I would never. Hold on. Let's honestly unpack this for a moment. I'm in China. I'm at a restaurant. I'm hungry. I see on the menu, it says, beagle with a side of broccoli and some refried beans. I go, beagle, broccoli, and beans on the same plate. And the waiter comes over and I go, how do you prepare the beagle? And he goes, oh, sir, you mustn't miss this. Our chef has been working tirelessly. He sautés it. He browns the outside. We top it with shallots and chanterelle mushrooms. It's really a can't miss. You think I'm saying no to the beagle? My favorite being in the history of anything that's had a heartbeat is Muggsy the dog. Actually, I can't say that anymore. I got 2 daughters and a wife. But really, before those 2 daughters and a wife, my favorite thing in the world was my beagle, Muggsy. But I'm in China. You think I'm saying, I'm a dog person. No, the dog's dead. I can't do anything about it at that point. The dog's already dead in the kitchen. And I'm curious. We're all curious. Isn't that true? We're all born with a little curiosity. That's why we have so many theories about shit, because we just can't say I don't know a lot of the time. We like to go to Quora and Reddit and keep asking, well, what about this? Well, how do I feel about this? Was this movie good? Was that speech good? How much alcohol is safe? How much alcohol is healthy? Instead of just asking ourselves, get me back to that. Let me ask no one. Let me go back to intuition, hunches, how I feel. I have to end this shit, actually. My insomnia is so bad that I worry that these podcasts cause a little spike of natural adrenaline because, I gotta at least wake the brain up a little bit. So I'm worried now. If I try to go to bed after a podcast, will my brain just be awake with thoughts, over scrutinizing every topic I discussed? I don't know, but I'm going to end it right now. I'm going to read my Maria Bamford memoir. I'm on to the next. After that, I think my friend Mitch Anderson's book is coming out in early September with his partner Nemonte Nenkimo. And that is just, are you kidding me? That's a book I've been waiting for years. Such wonderful people doing wonderful work. But that's it for this episode. I appreciate you listening. I love you very much. Leave a nice rating or a review. This episode, it's in the books. I'll talk to you soon.